Welcome back to Data Protection Diaries and welcome back to the vlog. In today's video we are going to do something a little bit different because we are going to be talking about the daily challenges of the average DPO. Now, challenges are going to be different for everybody depending on what sector you work in, whether you're an in-house DPO, whether you're an out-house DPO, whether you're a lawyer, it doesn't really matter. Challenges are always going to be different. But these are the kind of daily challenges that I've seen over my 12 years working in different industries, different sectors. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy this kind of content, please do make sure that you click subscribe. So down the bottom right hand corner, there's a little logo, click that and you can subscribe to Data Protection Diaries. Make sure you like this video and also make sure that you drop a comment down below and let me know what you think the daily challenges are or the daily challenges that you have in your role, and let's get a conversation going. Okay, so daily challenges of the average DPO. So these are obviously going to vary depending on the day of the week, depending on what time of year it is sometimes, but generally there are a fairly standard set of questions that we get asked on a fairly regular basis from all sorts of different clients. First one is always, how do you maintain and keep your ROPA up to date? Now, everybody loves a ROPA. You know, whether they like it or not, it is an incredibly useful tool. The record of processing activities gives your privacy team, gives your data protection team the kind of eye on the world. It lets them see what kind of activities are happening within the business, lets them know what kind of third parties are involved with that, also lets them know the lawful basis of why you're processing information. But the biggest challenge with that is that once you've written your ROPA, once you've documented it, once you've got it all written down for the first time, you have to keep that up to date. Now, depending on the size of your organization, that can mean going around lots of different departments, having lots of different contacts with lots of different people. Maybe you do it on an annual basis. If you're in a fast moving business that does a lot of acquisition, does a lot of change, your ROPA could be changing on a daily basis. So keeping on top of your ROPA and keeping on top of all the varying lawful basis and making sure that you've identified the right lawful basis for each processing activity is the number one challenge that DPOs face on a daily basis. Next up on the list for me is breach management. So not just the actual handling of a data breach, looking, investigating, understanding what's happened, but actually trying to determine the severity of that breach. So what has happened? How much impact is there going to be on the individual, on the organization? Is it gonna be reportable? Are we gonna have to tell anybody about it? This is always a challenge because when you get an incident report, when you get a breach report, especially when we get one coming through here at iStorm, we have to take the time to understand what the impact of that is. That means we have to talk to different people, we have to talk to different departments, we have to collate as much information as we possibly can. Now, the biggest challenge with breaches and incidents is always that they come in on a Friday afternoon at about 4:30, just as you're thinking that you're going to get ready for the weekend, and they just take over everything. Because a breach is always or usually unexpected, it also means that everything else kind of gets carved and chucked out of the window, and you have to concentrate on dealing with the breach, which in itself is always going to be a massive challenge. Coming in at number 3 for me is data subject access requests. You know the ones. We're not just talking about somebody asking for a copy of a phone call or a copy of a recording. We're talking about the employee, we're talking about the customer, somebody that's been around for 15, maybe 20 years, say, and they want a copy of everything. They're not going to give you a timeline, they're not going to give you any kind of descriptors, they just want to know everything that you know about them and everything that you've got on record. Again, a bit like with a breach response, this kind of triggers a whole process that makes a lot of other pieces of work stop. You have to go back out. You have to start interacting with different parts of the business. You have to start collating all of that information. You know the clock is ticking. You know you've got stuff to do. You know that once you've found that information, you've got to go through, you've got to redact it, you've got to package it up, you've got to get it ready to be handed out in time. The clock is already ticking. It's time to get going. They sometimes come on a daily basis. Sometimes they just come in once a week. But when they do, you know it's going to be a challenge no matter how well prepared you are. In at number 2 is one of my all-time favorite challenges. Now, I have come across this challenge more times than I care to remember, and it's always the same thing, and it's always usually around the same sort of time. It's when the marketing team get in touch because we've got to hit budget, we've got to get some customers, we've got to bring some business in, and it's the same old question: what does a service message really look like? Can I send this newsletter and call it a service message? Can I send this email and add an offer on the end, but send it to our non-subscribers if we send it as a service message? Sometimes it's just a flat out, can we accidentally send an email to everybody, including the people that have unsubscribed, if we call it a service message, if we don't have too much branding on, if we don't have this, if we don't have this? The answer every single time is no. If you haven't got permissions, if you haven't got consents for people, you cannot send them a marketing email. Even if you want to dress it up and pretend it looks like a service message is very clear, very defined. The answer is always going to be no. It always has been no, but it's always a challenge having to explain it for the 400th time to the people who already know what the answer is. So for me, I like to have a little record. I like to keep a track of those emails, so you can just pull out the email from last year, send it over again, and at least it makes the challenge a little bit easier to deal with. In at number 1, for me, the ultimate daily challenge of being a DPO is making sure and trying to encourage that the organization is doing its data protection impact assessments. Because generally what happens is that I get a phone call 3/4 of the way through a project, or after a system has been created, or after a process has been identified, and somebody goes, the client's asked us for a DPIA, the client's asked us for an impact assessment, we've been asked for an impact assessment, can you help us do one? And the first question is, no problem, where are you in the project, where are you in the activity? Oh, we've already done it, we're finished. It's been signed off. We're just looking to release it to the client. We just need to do an impact assessment. Every single time, if you're doing a DPIA, you have to do it at the beginning of the project. There's no point in doing it halfway through. There's no point in doing it at the end when the horse has already bolted. So it is a constant, literally daily challenge to go out, engage with organizations, engage with teams, make sure that those DPIAs are being done, make sure that processing activities that require a DPIA are being identified. How do you spot those? How do you know where those are? Getting involved within the business, that is a huge daily challenge, and it is the one thing that in my career I have always struggled with trying to get done, because you are so reliant on the rest of the business and the kind of governance structure and the kind of culture of compliance that surrounds you. As I say, there are going to be lots of varying different kind of challenges that everybody faces. These are kind of the top 5 from me. Thank you to everybody that commented over in the community section on the channel as well, and kind of gave their challenges. We have added a few of those in here. If you've got other challenges, if you do see other things that are going on, please do make sure that you add those down in the comments below, and let's get the conversation going. As always, this is a fairly succinct view, and it is my view on the world, but I think it's, well, I hope you enjoy it. If you do have any questions, please do let me know. But of course, do make sure that you subscribe to the channel, like, thumbs up, all those wonderful things. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.